I am unashamed. What about you?
Yeah, we'll break the fourth wall here, and this is so the key is if you're in the Robertson family, which we all are, even though I'm a Dasher. It's the same thing with Dashers too, though. We got the same problem.
I am not in the Robertson family.
Well, you're married to me, so you are by marriage.
1 + 1.
This
is the same point of reference.
The way,
Shoot.
yeah.
The two will become one.
That's our problem.
See,
Okay,
right
we
now
can get back.
there was an opening. This will be great because I could. There was an opening right there that if I'd have taken it, all the negative energy could have shifted to Jill. She would have been the scapegoat. So it's called the scapegoat mechanism. Like what the key is you cannot allow yourself to be the focal point of the energy of the group. Because then once it happened, the last podcast, I became the focal point, and then all the negative energy.
Because I willed it to happen, Zach. It wasn't accidental.
Yeah, you never end up there. But
You became the focal point when you weeded your wife out
That's right.
of a
Amen. Amen.
major
An
event.
ardent Alabama
And so
fan
what I'm
who
doing
is-
now is I'm sacrificing myself because I had an opportunity when you said that to Jill. I could have turned on Jill, and then but I don't know if you ought to turn on her or not. But it's like
you want to try? You want to test it out?
I don't. I want to move back into John
She
6,
was
man.
following the Holy Spirit. That's what happened.
Come on.
You said back up.
Yeah.
See, y'all do share one thing in your relationship that Missy and I share. And I said this one time, and Trent Langhofer, you remember him?
Oh, yeah.
He's a professional.
Or his dad-
We'll call him Dr. Langhofer.
Or his dad called him Cliffhanger.
Yeah,
Oh,
cliffhanger.
Cliffhanger.
Langhofer, cliffhanger. Funny, actually. But I said, the difference in our relationship and other marriage relationships is because we fight just like other married people do. We just have our fights in public.
Yeah.
Which is, I was serious.
That's why
I was like,
Missy and Jill are two of my favorite guests on the Unashamed podcast
Aw.
because I love to nurture that spark.
You're very good at it.
Yeah.
Well,
You bring the best out of
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Dr. Langhofer brought that out one night because Missy and I were disagreeing about something, but there was a room full of people. And he said, Jase, now that is a sign of a very functional, great marriage.
Oh, all
And I was
right.
like,
Yeah.
He's like,
somebody.
the fact that you're not trying to be something
Yeah.
that you're
Come
not.
on, preach.
You just have your disagreement. You were comfortable
You're not afraid.
to do it in front of people. I wasn't thinking, people are going to walk away and thought they fight like cats and dogs. I mean, I didn't. We had a disagreement. Now, when I'm saying
Yeah.
disagreement, there's no profanity. We just have a difference of opinion.
Yeah.
And so we will take a time out.
I would say that I'm actually not comfortable with it, but I think Jill's comfortable with it. I kind of feel uncomfortable. But she'll go there in public. She don't care. When we lived here, I had a house church with Paula and John Godwin, by the way, and we
Two
got
of my favorite people.
great
Yeah.
people.
My favorite, yes.
They're one of our favorite house churches we've ever done too.
Mhm.
And we were we got in a big fight Sunday after church about something. I don't remember. Well, she leaves like right before house church, and we were, newly married. She bolts out, goes. I don't even know where she went. She storms out of the house, and then everyone shows up for house church. But
And they show up to what? Probably not a clean house.
Not a
having.
clean house.
I'll tell you what we got in a fight over. I probably asked you to help me. And you probably went to go do some random
He
thing
was
in the yard that
probably
didn't
doing
need to.
some eschatology
Yeah.
studies on.
Yeah.
we,
So I decided, okay, I'll let him run this ship.
Yeah.
So I'm in there doing like I'm doing the lesson and everything, and everyone's, why is the house so messy? And I was like, I don't know, it's just because things happen,
So y'all just left it messy. And
I left.
Yeah.
I
Well,
was-
then Jill walks in like during house church, like 25 people, and she's out on hills, and it's like clicking through the house. Doom, 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 doom.
Look, he still remembers.
He still remembers the
these-
clickety clack of those
That was
heels.
back when I used to wear heels all the time. And I was owning every step.
You were representing the rider of the
was.
white horse. You know how the horse hooves are clicking.
Now you would
was
just
like-
slip in nice and quiet, but back in those days, it was
I
clippity
had to
clop.
make it known.
She made it known. And,
He's
and
mid teaching, and then he
I'm
just
teaching the word of God, right? And then my wife comes in there, and I'm like,
You should have just repented
I
right
was
there.
just like, I just stopped. I said, we're in a big fight.
Yeah.
But that was like a catalyst for our community because it was like, okay.
Well,
Everybody's
married people fight. That's just it.
True story.
And it.
I will say that's the beauty of a small group setting as opposed to you could walk into an assembly somewhere at a big building
you can
and nobody ever know you're hiding in there, but you can't hide when it's clippity clop in the
right.
kitchen.
You can't hide.
Oh, we had a big one the other night. And of course, look, I mean, we have done more hard stuff, which my wife moved me one night to tears, and I usually don't get teared up. I'm not a teary guy, but unless it's about my daughter, I guess. But because she's had so many problems and all, because I was real tough, until my daughter was born with, craniofacial issues, and then I became a basket case. But usually, she had made a statement a couple weeks before, because we have a little toddler. There's a reason people our age don't have little toddlers, because it's difficult. I mean, we're old. He's not, and
we need sleep.
Yeah, you think you're done with something, and the next thing you know, God says, hang on just a little bit. Which is biblical. I mean, there were older couples in the Bible who had kids. I can think of John the Baptist's parents.
Abraham.
Yeah.
And that's why I've been real concerned about this venture, because if one day I just can't speak, because you remember what happened to, what was John the Baptist?
Zechariah.
Yeah, Zechariah. Remember, he had a little questioning of God, so then he couldn't speak until he got his heart right. So, but anyway, so we've been doing a lot of things like that. And then with my parents, I mean, because my wife has been a warrior during this whole process. She's been great. Somehow or another, she's become my dad's favorite because she can cook more recipes that Kay does than I guess everyone else. And so she keeps bringing them up. Well, he's like, no, this is what I'm talking about. He's like, this other stuff, it'll kill you. This, good.
Still matters, y'all.
Yeah.
No matter where your mind is, food matters.
When he sees Missy, no matter what his condition is, he immediately gets up and starts looking for a fork. I kid you not. It's like, we bypassed the pleasantries. So we've had all this going on, and what moved me though is we had a tough time because we now have Phil and Kay back together. I don't know if we've announced that on the podcast.
I don't think so. Yeah, because that's just happened this last week.
Oh, what was this day for? It has been
it's a game
fantastic.
Mom moved in with Dad.
Well, they went and saw Phil and Kay.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Well, I was going to bring this up.
Yeah.
It's been fantastic, but it has also brought up a new set of challenges.
We're too loud.
That we'll have to discuss later. Yeah. We're
becoming a problem to the rest of the residents, apparently.
And the bottom line is it's a very difficult thing to explain, but, my dad's not doing great overall, and my mom is not doing great physically. And she has to have pretty much 24/7 healthcare professional. Yeah. But so my dad, it's like, but you're helping her morale and she's helping his morale.
Right. Because he's been so much calmer since she came back in.
And so during this process, we're now able to have visitors, and so we have friend groups. They call them the kingdom, Kay's kingdom, because she had friends visiting her. And then Phil had his kingdom group, guys coming up there fixing him fish. But they're in a facility where there are other people, but they have their own little private room. It's great. And so they're helping each other. And so that's been positive. But the challenge has been we have so many people coming up there, we're being disruptive. So we'll have to address that later.
I've got to tell y'all a little story. So Melissa and I, Zach's sister, went up to visit them yesterday, and they were so cute. It was such a great visit. But Phil, Kay, Kay's always had real dark hair, right? She always has her hair done, no matter what. She has her hair done. Well, in all this process, it's been several weeks since she could get her hair done, and so they've been apart. Now they're back together. Well,
she's had kind of a Cruella de Vil.
That's exactly.
Look here
it's like white, and then it's black, and so we're sitting there talking, and every probably 15, 20 minutes, Phil looks up and he'll say, What's Kay got going on? That half devil hair. That half devil hair. And he, I mean, in his state, he still notices something's off about it. And of course, Kay is like, well, I'm sorry, Phil. I haven't got my hair done.
Yeah.
You know, but Cricket was.
There they are, fighting in public, right?
Yeah.
How often do you do an ad where you're giving something away?
Not very often.
We're normally asking you to buy something, but in this case, we're saying receive this book right here, When Faith is Forbidden, 40 Days on the Front Lines with Persecuted Christians, from our friend Todd Diddleton at Voice of the Martyrs. Al, you've got a copy of this book as well.
I do. And what I love about what Todd did was, over 20 years of traveling to these restricted nations is what they're called, because, Christians are under duress in all these different places. He tells stories in this devotional about his interactions with these people. And I find them to be super inspiring, because I think we think sometimes in terms of persecution as, oh, well, yeah, that happened way back in the Bible.
Yeah.
But it happens every single day. Around the world. And the stories of what people do to defend their faith are powerful. And that's what this book is about. And it's free. As Zach said, it's remarkable stories that help you reflect on your own life. We're very blessed to live in the time and the place that we do, but we got to remember our brothers and sisters around the world. So Voice of the Martyrs, a wonderful organization that's been a blessing to us for many years, is offering this. And you can request your free copy of When Faith is Forbidden by calling 844-463-4059. That's 844-463-4059. Or you can visit vom.org/unashamed. That's vom.org/unashamed for your free copy of Todd's book.
Look, now I was there last night for a couple hours with another couple, and we got chastised for being too loud. But Phil said about the same thing to me. He's like, your mama there, I don't know what's going on with this hair. And I said, well, Phil, I said, that hair was designed by an insect. And he went, what? I said, yeah, the name of our hairdresser is Cricket. He said, it all makes sense now.
I mean, it was hilarious.
Which confirms our theory that Jase has dementia as well. He's just gotten used to his. So that's it. Yeah, you speak dementia.
And then the other funny story, you will appreciate this, talking about food. It was getting close to lunchtime, and, they're thinking about food. And Melissa looked at him and said, are you hungry? And he said, yeah, I think I am. And she said, do you want a steak? And he whips his head, he said, how did you know?
Yeah. Well, that's his number one.
He loves
request.
steak. Yeah.
And it was so cute. It filled us up.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I was saying, we're doing all these good things. Everything's going great. Well, it was a big storm this past week. Y'all probably
I know.
Y'all wasn't in town.
But try to fly in that. Yeah. I'm fully aware of the big storm.
Tornadoes, right?
So
terrible.
Yeah,
I was driving in it. I wasn't.
Sorry, Jill. Some people have to drive while the rest of us.
Let the man tell us story.
Well, there were also flash floods, and which is the problem. My brother goaded me into buying the house where we're at, because he's like, hey, I got this dream, we're all beyond the neighborhood, And at that time, nobody had any money but him. So he was like, well, buy the house, and if you can't pay for it, come to me, which I would never go to him. But I did think
he never offered me that deal.
He offered me that. Well, he knew I wouldn't come ask him, and so I
wouldn't either.
But it was actually a lot cheaper than I thought. Which then I looked at the terrain, and I thought, now I realize why this place is so cheap, because I'm at the bottom of the hill.
Exactly.
And when the big rain hits, everything goes down to old Jase's place.
Down at the bottom.
So I've had a drainage problem ever since I was there. And so it just started raining torrentially. And I was like, I'm worried about, maybe my place flooding, because I have a series of drains with little holes, but you got all this pollen everywhere. And the little pine pollen needles, they're everywhere.
You're just going to clog it up.
So, and it's only happened once where it was like, it scared me.
Did it get in the house? Did it ever get in the house?
It got right up to the door frames of the outside because my garage is a little bit down. And so Missy closes the garage door when it's going to rain because she knows that one time it almost flooded. But I thought, it doesn't matter. It's not like that's 100% seal proof. Because I thought in her mind, she thinks that's the answer. But in my mind, I thought, well, that's not going to work. If those drains get plugged, it's coming under that garage door. Mm-hmm. It is not 100% seal. But I've never told her that. I just thought she needs that for her mental well-being so she can sleep.
Now, this is coming from the guy who fixed the dishwasher by putting it on a center block. Done.
And guess what? Guess what?
I don't know why you're laughing. Our bed is on center blocks.
Yeah.
Our bed.
Yeah, Mr. Motel 6.
Al brings up a painful story. But look, you know what the problem with that fix was? Is that you could see the cinder block. It wasn't, she didn't thank me for doing it because she didn't like the fact that people would walk in and see a cinder block.
Yeah, it's hard to decorate around that, right?
Imagine why.
Well, that was what the argument was over because she wanted to cover it up, and I thought that's my trophy.
Yes,
the fact that I made that work with a cinder block and a screwdriver.
You did that. So much
like
more.
A true
my
redneck.
life is making more sense right now.
You're figuring it out now, too.
So guess what? We compromised. She covered it up, but I tell people, I was like, see that dishwasher? There's a cinder block under there that I put. And that's the reason it's functional. It was a balance issue. I'll tell the story every time.
Something.
So anyway, so we have the little man there. Well, it's thundering and he's waking up. He's scared, So there's drama here. It's not like we're just sitting there watching TV hoping we don't flood. I already have that issue. And I said, I better go check. So I go outside. Out in front of my garage, I have this unique drain system. I'll show you one day. You'll see. There's a lot of holes that could be covered up. And I look, and I can tell it's plugged. The pollen, whatever, it's just water is all in my driveway, so it's backing up. So I quickly ran back inside and looked where her car is parked. Well, I looked for 2 seconds, and I see water coming in pretty rapidly. And so about that time she come out, I'm like, we're flooding. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, and I said, it's 6-8 inches deep. Of course, I wasn't saying what part was 6-8. I just threw that number. I think she asked.
Because this is what you do. You just throw numbers out.
I threw a number out.
I get it.
Yeah, what you think? Why is this a big part of the story? This became the crux of the argument. So I go out there with a broom, a pole. With a plunger. I'm outside trying to break this, whatever is backing up the water. It's pouring rain. I'm soaking wet. And so the plunger actually worked outside. It just, and the water started falling. I start sweeping the water out.
You plunged your drains.
I plunged.
Why couldn't that have been caught on video?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was lightning and thundering. And it was rainy. And but about that time, she comes out to where her car's parked. Because she had some stuff in the carport on the other side where the water had not come. It had just come on one side, which made me realize, I was like, our driveway's not level because the water was filling up over here. And she said, I thought you said it was 6 or 8 inches deep. Because I looked down and it's like 2 inches on that side. I was like, does that really matter at this point? But she didn't see all the stuff that happened outside, And she's like, well, you just seem like to me you were exaggerating the problem. Because she's only looking at the carport.
This is what Jase does.
So that argument lasted a couple of days, Yeah, it was just like, you shouldn't embellish, I was like, I shouldn't have used a number. But I'm thinking you missed the big picture. Which, look, I've been studying John 6 for a week. I was saying, you missed the big picture. You're looking for a sign. I gave you a sign that the sign was wrong, and now you've thrown the whole big picture out.
You were saying it's time to panic. We got water coming in.
It was time to panic. Yeah. Water's coming in. I have to fix something. It was in a different part of of the yard. However, this was fixing to be 6 or 8 inches deep. In there. But I shouldn't have said the number. She never get past it. So then because I didn't tell you what made her so mad. I was like, well, I shouldn't have used a number to someone who's being legalistic. That was the wrong statement.
So now you called her a legalist.
Well, because yeah.
Those are fighting words.
So the problem, this whole thing is it's all in what your name is. Silas Merritt is our uncle.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Silas is this man.
Yep.
Reed Silas is his son. All prone to massive exaggeration.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
will admit that
it's something about the name. I don't. It's the biggest thing.
By the way, y'all don't do the social media, but I do, and I think that the boys over there may have been offended by the conversation we had about the duck call room.
Really?
Yeah, they put out a little reel on Instagram of Jase basically saying it was I forgot how you said it, something like it was a fine line between a pod. What was it?
Oh, I thought that was funny. It was a funny line. I said the fine line between bringing everyone, under one, and then the Tower of Babel,
which you may or may not have been called some version of a fun sucker, by them.
Well, I know who said that.
Well, it was
Si says that every time I disagree with him.
So Si came out swinging, but Martin was like, "Well, I mean, he's kind of got a point."
Yeah.
Thank you, Martin, for being.
But
truthful.
I want to go on the record and say I love those guys over at the duck call room. It was fun. I did say because I was telling
nobody asked me if I loved them.
You
I love them, but I'm saying it's 49 minutes of nonsense and 1 minute of some truth.
Yeah, I would concur. If there's anything that the Tower of Babel on earth, it's in that room, 20 feet over.
I actually like being on it, and because I was reading through some of the comments on YouTube, and one guy said,
because they think you're smart.
Well, no, they said the guy said, Zach actually has a fun personality. I just thought he was a punk or something like that. I watch him on Unashamed, but they were like, so my personality was like highlighted over there with those guys. So
Babe, we love you.
Yeah.
I love you.
Yeah.
I love you too.
You got a good personality.
Love is in the air.
I'll tell you, one of the things that I think about a lot is now that I got 5 kids, so y'all know that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think about what would happen if something happened to me. Is my family going to be taken care of? And so that's why I firmly believe that you need to take care of your family, even in the event that you may pass on and die. And that's where our friends at Fabric by Gerber Life come into play. Fabric by Gerber Life is term life insurance you can get done today. Made for busy parents like you, all online and on your schedule. You could be covered in under 10 minutes with no health exam required. If you've got kids, and especially if you're young and healthy, the time to lock in low rates is now. Even if you have life insurance through your employer, it may not be enough protection for your family, and it may not follow you if you leave your job. Fabric has flexible, high-quality policies that fit your family and your budget, like $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day. Fabric has partnered with Gerber Life, trusted by millions of families like yours for over 50 years. There's no risk. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can cancel at any time. Fabric has more than just life insurance. It's your one-stop shop for free digital wills, access to investment accounts to invest for your kids' future, and more. Plus, manage it all right from your phone. Protect your family. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/unashamed. That's meetfabric.com/unashamed. MEET fabric.com/unashamed. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company. Not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions.
It took 2 podcasts, but now y'all are back together.
We are back together. Thank you for the counseling, Al. You're one of the most destructive counselors I've ever seen.
But look, to get to something good is a counselor told me years ago. To get to a good place, you have to go through conflict to get there.
So you got to go through.
Well, that was my point. Look, we've been rambling a little bit, but my whole point was most marriages that dissolve. Yeah. They become their own identity. They drift away. Right. They don't have these conversations. Mm-hmm. They don't have these conflicts. They're not doing it together. They're not doing life together.
Well, and that is true. When we are apart, that's when we fight.
That's true.
That's true.
Well, yeah. at
Like
least-
when he leaves you.
Should-
Okay.
Yeah, he should have taken me.
Al. I mean, Al is
remember-
like, I feel like this is one of them things that's like, it's kind of like
It's
we're
gonna
joking,
come
but then I
back.
feel like we're going to get out of here and this is going to come back to haunt me. And so I'm going to hold you
Well,
accountable.
I'm
I'm
always in your
forgetting.
phone. Just call me
My
when you
point
need me.
was the marriage is over when one party doesn't care.
That's
They
it.
don't
Yeah.
care to
That's
have the
called
argument.
withdrawal, Jase. If you get
Yeah.
over withdrawal, if you had one of those Venn diagrams, if
Yeah.
you put those circles, withdrawal is the place you get to
Mm-hmm.
that's you don't want to be.
No.
Conflict is a place you're still passionate and working together. Intimacy and conflict together is
That's
usually the
right.
best.
Yeah, it is good
That's
to
true.
deal with it.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
I
and look,
digress.
and then I mean, a couple of days later, it's like, well, I got to kiss you goodnight. Let's make I love you. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
you okay? We weathered the storm.
Literally.
You're-
Pun
Yeah.
intended.
Well,
Well, that's what happens when emotions get up.
But how? But was it 2 inches? Was she right on the depth?
It was
of the,
2 inches in the carport, but I had just from everything else I'd seen that
Yeah.
she never saw. You know, it was,
I mean, that's what you're going to go back to. We're going to bring the number
I'd be
up
curious
back
again.
to the
Let's-
number.
I mean, yeah, I want to
I
she
think we're
was
good.
she was right on the driveway, but
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking. I mean, on the carport, but I wasn't thinking in those terms because I was like,
Yeah.
I need a plunger. I need, it's 6-8 inches deep because I was thinking it's just coming up. We're plugged. It's-
She was probably thinking you were going to put her car on cinder blocks.
yeah. She
Yeah.
never got past
Yeah.
the carport. She never went out. And
Did you-
That
well,
conversation
trust
never
me,
happened.
when we have Missy the next time on Unashamed podcast, trust
Yeah.
me, Unashamed Nation, we will get her side of this story.
Did you
So-
do you feel like maybe there could be some truth about her thing about you maybe embellishing? I mean, do you think you might struggle with that?
Yeah, I think where it escalated is when I didn't just apologize.
Yeah.
I just said I shouldn't have used a numerical description.
you legalist.
Yeah, and threw in the word legalist somewhere.
Yeah.
Because in that moment,
That's
my
never a good
adrenaline,
icebreaker. when
No.
it's
my
over.
adrenaline was
That's
pumping.
never
At
worked
this
out.
point now, I'm wet.
That's like the equivalent to when Zach. Actually, I probably should not say this on podcast.
Yeah, you
Go
Okay.
ahead. We
We
can
can
edit
edit
it
it
out.
It's when Zach does the thing of what day of the month is it? What
Oh,
what are you?
he goes there.
Is it?
I
Are we-
may
Is
or
it?
may not have said that.
I did that same thing early on, but you know what? I said I'm
It
never
didn't work
done
out
that.
well.
Yeah, that's not something good to bring up. So-
Zach's been wearing an orange hat ever since, so that's what happens
Hey, I
when
don't
you
want to
go
get
there.
shot, boys. I'm telling you.
So,
All right, so we're getting back to John.
I'd
yeah,
like
I
to,
mean, I
yeah.
just started this conversation.
That was a long
on-
story.
Well, I'm talking
Welcome to Unashamed, Jill. This is what we do. We listen to Jase's ramblings.
It's like Seinfeld meets a Bible study, a show about nothing meets the Word of God.
Well,
Exactly.
in my simple mind, we have the intelligent mind because that's why Zach really loves the duck call room. He wants to be the most intelligent.
Oh, that's exactly
In the
why he's showing out.
And so I give him that here, but I'm like, I kind of use that as a potential fault because if nobody knows what the heck you're saying, why are you talking?
Well, people do know what I'm saying, Jase, and with that, and they'll tell you it in the comments. Now, Jase is smarter than he tries to play the.
He's like an old
Yeah.
Airedale dog. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Now, I actually had a word I was going to try to use today to impress Zach because this, when you think about all this, what we've been talking about today, which is arguing, which Zach and I are, this is
Masters.
Masters.
Yeah, we
of
learned.
arguing.
PhD. We have a PhD.
I
in
love
arguing.
Zach. That's his number one quality I love because I have very few people that I can argue with because
Mhm.
people get their feelings hurt or they think I'm mad or they're not looking at the big picture. But Zach, he's
Let's
he's
go.
fine. Yeah, it's like I know he's never gonna like disfellowship me from the family
That's
because we
true. That is
disagree.
true.
So I need those
Yeah.
arguments every once in a while. But this basically in John 6 is an argument.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons why it's a difficult text because he's breaking down every argument through the process.
Yes.
Because trust me, these people were legalists.
Mhm.
So the word that, because I heard in all of my study, I heard this word used and I had to look it up because they said Jesus was basically given an ontological argument. And I thought, ooh, that sounds great. Now let me go look up ontological. So do you know what that means?
I
Oh,
I
he
bet Zach
knows.
knows.
Oh, he
He
knows.
knows.
He loves that one.
I didn't know I'd heard it before. But
well,
I
when
was
Zach
like,
was describing the Olivet discourse, he went into the ontological.
Yeah.
The
so-
ontological, there is an ontological argument inside of apologetics that's very hard to understand. It's one of the few that I was like, ooh, that hurts
but
my
it's
brain to think
helpful if
about
you
it.
only use one big word per sentence.
Yeah.
So for you that out
That's
there
a lot
like
of
me,
syllables.
I looked it up and it was like the relational aspect of who Jesus is. He was representing himself because he's like, well, me and the Father, I'm doing this on the Father's behalf. Well, the Father, that means you're the Son.
Mm-hmm.
You're the Son of God, and that was the problem
Yeah.
that they weren't comfortable with that because they're like, well, you're a human. We know where you're from, which they bring that argument up.
Which is why I think he winds up, just a little fast forward to the end, when he says, eat my flesh, drink my blood. And it sounded so crazy, but from his perspective, he was telling him, it's about me.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's on
being
to it.
Yeah.
It's going back to John 1:14.
That's
Yes.
it.
Well, one way,
The word became
Flesh.
Flesh.
The same word that was in the beginning was with God and was God.
Yeah.
He was with God in the beginning. Through him, all things were made. I mean, that's why I'm walking on the water. That's why I'm bringing bread from heaven. I'm creator in a body.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he stood there with loaves and he's breaking them apart and he's giving it to the 12 and they're going to deliver it. And just imagine, it's just piling up underneath it. I mean, he's got 5 finite loaves that he just infinitely fed 10,000 people with, and they picked up 12 basketfuls at his feet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the kind of power we're talking about in the moment.
Yeah, it's hard to grasp what Jesus is claiming here. But when you think about the word ontology, the other word that you can use is it's different, but economy. And so when you think about who is God and who is Jesus in God, ontologically, like his nature, his very being, his nature, he is the sovereign God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But now inside of that Godhead, he has and this does get controversial in certain circles, but
Don't get controversial.
but,
Just deal in the
well, there's
facts.
just different roles, like right, and so at the very least, we can say that Christ in his incarnated state in a body, or the Son in
was
the body,
serving the Father. That's not
serving the Father.
controversial. He
That's
says
not
it,
controversial.
He says it
What-
100 times.
But what gets controversial is was the Son always in this position eternally? And I think that, well, I won't say what I think here because I don't want to get off track. But I think that what's interesting when you think about what Jesus is establishing himself as here, as being this, he's saying I'm God. I'm God. That's who I am. And by being God means that he is going to be the provider of all things.
Mm-hmm.
And all things will originate with him. All things. Every blessing, every revelation, everything originates with God. And the problem that these guys are having is that they just could not quite give him their trust. And they give me more signs, give me more signs.
because he was a human.
Because he was a human. But if
Well,
he,
look, and I don't think we can blame them necessarily. I mean, look, I said they asked a bunch of dumb questions, but they came from their heritage where there's only one God, and we're serving him, Yahweh, and now there's a human claiming to be God. Well, that goes against.
And it shows you their misunderstanding of the Messiah. The whole thing they misunderstood.
There was there's this interesting thing I've been studying recently about. They were called the Targums, and they basically would take the Old Testament Hebrew scripture and they would rewrite it in Aramaic, and then so that the people could understand it, and then they would like teach it from the different places in town and different synagogues. And if you go back and read some of those, it's very, very interesting that they said they would read the Old Testament and they said, man, it seems like there's like 2 Yahwehs.
Well, right.
And so they're looking at
Because the Lord said to my Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's that in Psalms?
So it's all throughout the scriptures. There's a bunch of scriptures in the Old Testament
Psalm
where you're
1:10.
reading it and Yahweh speaks about himself in the first and third person. So you're like, is there 2 Yahwehs? It's kind of confusing.
Mm.
So the way that they solved this dilemma, not even knowing about Jesus, is they translated one of those to be the word of Yahweh. And the word of Yahweh translated is the logos of Yahweh.
Yeah.
So I found out on my credit card someone's purchased an Apple computer and it wasn't me. Has that ever happened to y'all?
But I really needed it, Zach.
No, wait. I tried to track this down.
Okay, good. It
Yeah,
wasn't.
somebody stole my identity a few years back, and I'm telling you, it threw me into a tailspin. So I took matters into my own hands, and I protect my identity now with Identity Guard. Identity Guard actively monitors your most sensitive information, your credit, your financial accounts, your social security number, and even the dark web for any signs of suspicious activity. So you get instant alerts before the damage is done. But Identity Guard doesn't just send you alerts. If your identity is stolen, their team works directly with the banks and the credit bureaus and other institutions to fix it for you. And while they handle the cleanup, you're covered up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. Identity Guard also watches for fraud involving your home and auto titles. It flags unusual activity in your investment accounts, and it proactively removes your data from people searching these people search sites. Wow. Listen to this offer from Identity Guard. Identity Guard is offering our listeners a 30-day free trial and 60% off when you go to identityguard.com/unashamed. That's 30 days free and 60% off at identityguard.com/unashamed. That is less than what you're paying for the streaming service that you forgot to cancel this month. That's IDENTITYGUARD.com/unashamed to sign up for a 30-day free trial and get 60% off. Certain terms apply, so be sure to check the site for details.
See where you're going with this.
Wow.
Which is back to John 1:14.
Back to John.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's something to it, but I also think in this context, so when we read in John 5:39, remember when he said, you diligently study the scriptures because you think that by them you'll possess eternal life? These are the scriptures that testify about me. Where does it say where Moses wrote about me? That's one I was looking for.
Skip down
Going
to
down to
44.
45.
45.
Yeah, 45. But do not think I will accuse you before the Father. Your accuser is Moses, on whom your hopes are set. If you believe Moses, you would believe me, for he wrote about me. Well, now you're kind of seeing that phrase. I think John did it on purpose, because now they're bringing up Moses in John 6, and we read this last time. That's where we left off. When they said in verse 30 and 31, so they asked him, what miraculous sign then will you give that we may see it and believe you? Which he'd already given them the feeding of the 5,000. But think about really what they're saying. This is the equivalent of you going and getting a sign and put it in your vehicle. It's like, I got the sign. And then you're going on your way. What is the sign pointing to?
Yeah.
Is what Jesus is trying. The sign is only going to point to me. And I'm saying I am where you need to put your faith and trust in.
Well,
But they're
and
like,
he also,
yeah, but we want the sign.
Yeah,
We want the sign.
we want the sign, but we also a lot of times want a person, because I love what he says. He says Moses. Let's see, that is verse
32.
32. Yeah, he says, "Truly, truly, I say to you, it was not Moses who gave you the bread from heaven, but my Father gives you true bread from heaven."
Right.
A lot of times we want a person. We want somebody to.
King, we want a king.
We want a king.
Give us a king.
But we don't necessarily want the King of Kings. We just want someone to admire.
But that's another version of a sign, though. I mean, the prophets were signs.
It is. It's like when he said he had to leave because they were going to make him king by force.
Yeah.
Where was that verse at?
That was at the very end.
But I also think he was saying that too because they were so bound by the law. Moses, they were still bound by the law. That's why they missed Jesus over and over, is because they were so tuned into the old law, the rituals, that this is the way it's got to be. This is what, that they missed coming to fulfill the law.
Yeah, I think it's, I've heard it said this way, you want the kingdom without the king, and that's what they wanted. But when you read that verse about demanding a sign, and the problem is when you follow the signpost instead of the sign giver, then what happens is you will forget. You just will. So there's interesting text in Mark chapter 8, because think about it, Jesus fed 5,000 people with, what was it, 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Then in Mark 8, it's recorded that he feeds 4,000 people, and he had, I think, 7 loaves of bread that he fed them with. So, and you go back to the whole thing that happened in Exodus when he had manna dropping out of the sky. I mean, so there's this pattern in Scripture of Jesus always shows up with the bread, right? Always. He always shows up.
That's why I asked him the question, where are we going to go buy bread? But you remember, look, in John 4, we hadn't brought this up yet. At the end, when it just seems like a throw-in to the Samaritan woman, when the disciples came from Samaria, they said, Rabbi, eat something. And he said to them, I have food to eat that you know nothing about.
You don't know about this food.
What?
He was just dropping a little hint on what was about that.
Yeah, that's right. Then his disciples said to each other, could someone have brought him some food? I do that like in the Chosen voice, Big John. Could someone have brought him some food? My food is to do the will of him who sent me and finish his work. Mm-hmm. So that's why, look, he's already dropped you a couple of hints here about his role, as you said. And then even the Spirit we didn't talk about is going to have a role of then pointing people to Jesus. And he gets into that, John 14, 15, and 16.
I think there's another question that Jesus asked in in Mark 8 that ties into this because right after the times when he fed them the 5,000, then he fed the 4,000, like right after that, and John, and when the Pharisees demand a sign, which is the same place at here, in John 8:14, it says they had forgotten to bring bread, and they'd only had one loaf with them in the boat, and he cautioned them, saying, "Watch out, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, of the leaven of Herod." And they began discussing with one another the fact that they had no bread. Now think about this. It just came out of the scene where Jesus shows up with 5 loaves of bread. He feeds 5,000 people. With 7 loaves of bread, with abundant left over. Then they get on a boat and they're like, "Whoa, we only got 1 loaf of bread. We're not going to be able to feed ourselves." And Jesus, aware of this, said to them, "Why are you discussing the fact that you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive or understand? Are your hearts hardened? Having eyes to see and having ears, do you not hear? And do you not remember when I broke the 5 loaves for 5,000? How many baskets full of broken pieces did you take up?" They said 12. And 7 for the 4,000. How many baskets were broken and were taken up? And they said to him 7. And he said to them, "Do you not understand?" They still didn't get it. And there is something in this too, that those 12 baskets, 12 tribes of Israel,
and 12 disciples,
the 7 baskets,
7 nations,
the 7 nations of the Gentile territory.
Right.
There's a picture here coming together, and there's like so many layers of what's happening here that they don't have a clue. But Jesus is revealing it in himself, and now because we have the Holy Spirit, Paul says in Ephesians 3. That all of this whole crazy thing of Gentile and Jew coming together in one kingdom under the King of Kings, he says that through the church, the manifold wisdom of God would now be made known to the powers and the rulers in these heavenly realms.
Yeah,
I want to back up to right before that verse, and I know you said it, verse 11 in Mark 8. Where it says the Pharisees came and began to argue with him, seeking from him a sign from heaven to test him. And he sighed deeply in his spirit and said, "Why does this generation seek a sign? Truly I say to you, no sign will be given to this generation." And he left them and he got into the boat. That picture of him just sighing deeply, I think of as a parent, when you're just like, come on, like, why don't they see it? Why don't they? But I don't want to miss that. Why does this generation seek a sign? I don't want to find myself in that boat. Yeah. And I think sometimes in 2025, that's where we're at. Where's our sign? What's next? Give us a sign. Give us a sign. What team should I be on? Where, and it's like Jesus is like, I'm the sign, just who I am, the Spirit in you.
Yeah. But signs always point to a person. Have you ever pulled up behind somebody and they've got 17 bumper stickers on the back of their car?
That's big in Asheville.
And so typically, if you're leaning one way or the other on a political bent, there's more. So you only needed one for me to figure out who the person was driving the car. But with 17, I got it.
I got you.
I
nailed
got what
down.
you're trying to say, but the signs are only pointing to the person
Right.
and what their belief system is. That's exactly what he's trying to tell them here. You keep wanting another bumper
Well,
sticker.
well-
We got it if you figure out who the person is.
Or signs point, like road signs point to a location,
Right.
which is also why we brought up this idea of him repeating himself over and over and over and over. I came from heaven. This came from heaven. The bread came from heaven.
Yeah.
This came from heaven. And
Give,
we're
give,
like,
give.
well, when can I go there? You know, and he's like, well, let's just start with receiving what's coming from there.
Right, right.
'Cause-
Just receive it. Sometimes I think we become so obsessed with the signal and the sign, even that it paralyzes us. We're waiting for
Paralyzes.
God to tell us what we need to do and what our purpose is and I think that paralyzes us a lot of times.
Which
No,
is-
it's like the people who open the Bible. They're like, okay, I need a sign. You know,
Oh, yeah.
and then they open the Bible and they look down, where there's a dead carcass, there the vultures will gather. Oh, what does this mean? But I've heard this 100
yeah.
times. Usually when
Yeah.
I say, what's your story? And somebody will say, well, one time I just opened the Bible and I read. It's like, well, the Bible is pointing you to a person. I mean, I always start there.
Mm-hmm.
Because people tend to think, oh, let me figure out all the rules. Well, it's the same questions they're asking. What is required?
Yeah.
You're like, why is someone asking that? I'm gonna
What's
just
the
give
minimum?
I'm gonna give you the truth about humanity, and that is, I'm gonna do as least as possible to accomplish the task. For really months, Zach thought he was dropping calls, and he later found out because I told him that I was just hanging up on him.
But you know what? I'm glad you did it because I actually switched to Pure Talk because I thought I was dropping calls, and I don't drop calls anymore. So I don't know if that means you're not hanging up on me anymore. But nonetheless, I'm saving a lot of money with these guys. I love these guys at Pure Talk. They're amazing. And I want to encourage you, don't get suckered into this same old free phone game by the big wireless companies, because I'll tell you right now, it comes with a lot of fine print. I realized that recently. Pure Talk, our sponsor, and my wireless company have a much better offer for you guys. With a qualifying plan of just $35 a month, you can get a brand new Samsung Galaxy A26 for free. This phone has virtually indestructible Gorilla Glass. It captures beautiful wide-angle photos with the next generation camera lenses. All you need to do is switch to Pure Talk. For just $35 a month, you get unlimited talk, text, and 15 gigs of data with a mobile hotspot, all on America's most dependable 5G network. Switching is easy, I know, because I did it, and you can do it as well. I love this company as well because Pure Talk, they are committed to helping veterans, which we believe in. They are helping to eliminate veteran debt, and they're raising donations to end veteran suicide. So go to puretalk.com/unashamed to make the switch. Again, that's puretalk.com/unashamed to claim your free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plan when you switch to Pure Talk. Again, that's puretalk.com/unashamed to claim your free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plan when you switch to Pure Talk. Wireless by Americans for Americans. T.S. Eliot said that we try to come up with systems so that we don't have to be good.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what they're doing here when they say, when he's talking about, he said, for the bread of God is he who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. They said to him, sir, give us this bread always. They knew that whatever that, but they didn't know what he was talking about.
Mm-mm.
Oh,
But the
right.
money quote is the next one. Jesus said to them, I am the bread of
Mhm.
life.
It's it.
Yeah.
Whoever comes to me shall not hunger, and whoever believes in me shall never thirst. I mean, that's the money quote, that he is the bread of life.
And then
He's the man of
it's
the
like we
kingdom.
talked about in the last podcast. Once you understand that, then you're ready for any season. We've been talking about end of life stuff because, we're doing a lot of stuff with mom and dad. But I used to remember all the time when I was with families and we were in end of life settings, I always had to tell them, look, this isn't about right and wrong on decisions. This
Yeah.
is about living and making decisions.
Mhm.
And there's a trust factor. So that's why Paul said, we don't grieve like the rest of men who have no hope. When we understand that heaven has come to earth
Yeah.
and the Spirit of God lives in us,
Mhm.
we're ready for any season.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
means end of life. That means crossing over. That means all of it. We have
Well-
the same confidence and hope going into
Yeah,
every
one of the
situation.
most difficult conversations I have to have with my dad is because in his mind, he's perfectly fine,
Mhm.
which Call it a delusion, call it Alzheimer's, whatever. And some days he's better than others. Like yesterday, he was more in tune than I've seen him in a month.
Yep.
And he's like, now, Jase, when are you getting me out of here? So he asked me that. So there's me and Missy and another couple. So everybody kind of like, oh, no, what are you going to say? I said, well, Phil, remember, the goal of the last 3 months was to get you and Mom back together.
Mm-hmm.
You're now, and that's why you've been so happy the last 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he went, hey, hey, hey. So I was like, now she has to have 24-hour, supervision. I was like, and Phil, you need a little help too, and he went, yeah, you're right. But it's like, I just was perfectly honest. I was like, now look, God may just touch Mom and touch you and we'll get back going. But for right now, you're doing better together. You're doing better right now than you've done in months, and your body's falling apart, And he's like, "Yep, you're right." I mean, and I thought in this moment of clarity, he was like, because the question was, "Now, when am I getting out of here?" I was like, "Let's just focus on." I was like, we're living here. This is fun. Was that not a good meal?" He's like, "Yeah, it's good time." So, and I think to your point. That's what it was. And then I said, and remember, you famously said, hey, I'm eating right and I'm working out, to people who didn't want to think about post-death. Phil would always ask that question. I've used it 1,000 times because it's good, because people, they think in their mind, well, I'm eating right and I'm working out. And my dad would say, you'll die healthy.
Yeah.
Because we think in our minds, oh, somehow I'm not going to have to deal with my impending death.
Yeah.
And it, I'm not saying you shouldn't eat right and work out, but I am saying don't use that to have a delusion that death is not coming. Oh, it's coming.
That's why you want to raise your family, your children, your progeny, to have this bigger mindset of heaven and earth, because they're going to be in that position one day. Yeah. And the last thing you want to have them doing is questioning every decision they make about their parents, about their grandparents. Once you see that bigger picture of who God is, you realize that we go through any season. We do that together by God's Spirit, by the power.
I want to read this because we're almost out of time and we can talk about it next time. But that's immediately where he goes to when he gets to verse 20 about not only am I came to give you life, but life that's eternal. So in verse 20 it says, for the Father loves the Son and shows him all he does. So now he's making his ontological argument. Yes, to your amazement, he will show him even greater things than these. I mean, he's obviously looking into the future of what Spirit-filled people are going to get to experience on earth. And remember, he also, as evidence to this heaven and earth thing, remember when he prayed in Matthew 16, when he taught them how to pray? Remember when he prayed? He said, I pray that your kingdom will come on earth as it is in heaven. And he's really explaining that here. So in verse 21, it says, for just as the Father raises the dead and gives them life, even so the Son gives life to whom he is pleased to give it. Moreover, the Father judges no one, but has entrusted all judgment.
Where are you at?
Where are you at? I think
he's in 5:21.
5:21.
Well, then I'm going to get to 20. Even as the Son gives life, whom he is pleased to give it. So, I'm sorry. So then in John 6, look, he does the same basic thing.
Yeah.
He gets to verse 34 of John 6 and says, sir, from now on, give us this bread. And this is the big statement here. And I wanted to show you in John 5, he said the same thing. He's just now doing it in a form of, in answer to give us a sign, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me will never go hungry. And he who believes in me will never be thirsty, which goes back to John 4. But as I told you, you have seen me, and still you do not believe. All that the Father gives me will come to me, and whoever comes to me, I will never drive away. For I have come down from heaven. There it is again. I've come down from heaven, not to do my will, but to do the will of him who sent me. And this is the will of him who sent me, that I shall lose none of all that he has given me, but raise them up at the last day.
He's going to mention that 4 times.
He goes to the same argument. This is not a new argument, is my point. For my Father's will, and here's just a very profound verse, is that everyone who looks to the Son and believes in him shall have eternal life, and I'll raise him up at the last day. Sounds a lot like John 3:16.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
At this, the Jews began to grumble. You're like, what?
Which
I mean,
is
what?
familiar.
What? How could you be grumbling about that? And by the way, one of the other parallel passages to Jesus walking on the water says that the disciples' hearts had been hardened because they didn't understand the sign of the feeding the 5,000 of the bread.
Right.
So they were having difficulty too, and you're going to see that. So then,
because he's essentially saying, you asked for a sign. I gave you the sign, but you saw the sign and still didn't believe.
Yeah,
the sign's not going to help you
missed
believe.
Who the sign was
the
pointing.
sign is pointing to me.
Yeah.
I am the fulfillment of this. I'm where the signs are pointing toward. So he says they're grumbling because he said, I am the bread that came down from heaven. That's what caused the grumbling. And when you look back at what happened with the manna and Moses, guess what? They grumbled after the manna came from heaven. But now that he was saying, remember when he made the statement, Moses was talking about me?
Mm-hmm.
He's wanting them to connect the dots.
Yeah.
That bread that came down from heaven, when we were wandering in the wilderness,
That was me.
that was me. I'm the ultimate bread.
Remember the water that came out of the rock? That was me.
So what they should have said is, God became a man, which I've told you, I'm always fascinated. You say that to people in Bible studies, and I've had about 2 out of the last 4 Bible studies. They said that. They're like, God became a man? And I was like, I thought you had studied the Bible. They're like, I have. I was like, you missed that? He's like, came to this planet? I was like, yeah, God came to the planet.
And I think that when you read that text, because it can be confusing, I think you have to, again, read it in the flow of redemptive history and the return to Eden, and that understanding that nations were created. I mean, they were created by God in Genesis 11.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that's coming. That's all coming to a close, and He's bringing all the nations back together. So again, referring back to that verse, and Paul talks about this in Ephesians 3. He says the mystery hidden in ages. There's a mystery of basically the Gentiles are being included into salvation now. So when he talks about in John 6, I think this is one of the main points he's making. That whoever the Father gives me, like I'm gonna keep him, and who's he gonna give? He's gonna give the children of faith to him. It's the Romans 9 argument.
Well, that's what we're going to get into next time, because he's going to make the argument, no one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I'll raise him up at the last day. So we'll get into how that works, which some people, I do disagree with what their take on that is, but we'll get into that. Speaking of controversy.
Yeah. Well, we're
Jill,
out
thank
of
you.
time.
It's always a pleasure to have
Love
you
it.
on Unashamed.
Love to be here.
All
Thank
right,
you.
we'll keep working on your marriage.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Unashamed podcast. Help us out by leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And don't miss an episode by subscribing on YouTube. And be sure to click the little bell and choose all notifications to watch every episode.